We have lived to a time when pop culture, focused primarily on entertainment and bringing profit to producers, can at the same time ask serious questions and pose non-obvious answers. Therefore, today, using the example of the Avengers films, we will look at different perspectives on how much human life is worth, and whether the ends can justify the means. The episode contains spoilers from the movies Avengers, Infinity War and Endgame. In the latest movies of the Avengers series we meet Thanos, who is a perfect example of how an engaging villain should be almost appealing. He unfolds before us a vision of the inevitably impending ecological catastrophe, in the face of the ever-growing population of the universe with limited resources. Faced with this, he states that, the most difficult choices require the strongest will. His will. And the solution, in the form of murdering a randomly selected half of the universe's population. He does not say that these lives are not important. However, but he recognizes that they are less valuable than the greater good he aims for, which is ensuring the survival and prosperity of the rest. He gives us arguments, draws from his own experience, and in all of this he is devoid of emotions and coldly rational. All this left many viewers in the question, could he not be a bit right? Thanos in fact embodies a form of utilitarianism, according to which, good is what will be the most useful and the least disadvantageous for as many people as possible. Ultimately, the measure of the rightness of a procedure is the usefulness of its effects. Which can be simplified to, the end justifies the means. Thanos does not hide that what he plans to do is horrifying, but claims that he does it for the greater good, and he's as ready to sacrifice everything and everyone, including the lives of people close to him. Not only metaphorically, but also literally sacrificing people at the altar. In opposition to him, stand our well-known heroes with a more classical approach to morality, showing that they are ready to take every measure and fight, even to defend just one person. This is most clearly shown, of course, by Captain America, an exemplary patriot and traditionalist. When it turns out they could stop Thanos by killing one of their own, he doesn't even want to take it into consideration. The captain explicitly states that, we do not trade lives. They will not sacrifice someone else's life, even for the common good. It is a clearly individualistic moral attitude in which the good of the individual is a value in itself. Importantly, Thanos does not see himself as a villain here. Rather, he perceives himself as a hero, spending his life on the sacred mission of acquiring Infinity Stones needed to complete his plan. And he sees those who oppose him as tiny people guided by petty, traditional morality, who cannot accept that decisive steps must be taken for a higher purpose, and who cannot see that all of this is for their own good. Which, incidentally, is an attitude that can be observed in many historical figures who were preoccupied with the vision of themselves as the only person worthy of fulfilling a historical necessity, and claiming that creating a better world requires sacrifices. Through the conflict between Thanos and the Avengers, we actually observe a clash of their ideologies. The villain tests the value system of the heroes again and again, in order to get the next Infinity Stones. To stop him, they would have to let a loved one die. It is worth noting, however, that he puts them in hopeless situations. Either they will give him another part that brings him closer to his goal, or they will sacrifice their loved ones, admitting that Thanos is right. That there are things worth more than the lives of their loved ones. But we can see that even when they choose the latter option, it backfires. And the first of the two acts of the story ends with a complete failure of our heroes. We also get an illustration of how trying to fix one's failure by breaking with the previously held values, not only does not fix anything, but results in self-contempt. However, in the second act of the story, as the threads develop, it turns out that the steps to undo evil done by Thanos require struggling with oneself, reconciliation with one's family, and sacrifice. But not sacrifice of other people's lives, but of yourself. In one of the scenes, two heroes literally compete who will sacrifice their life for a higher purpose. However, the most important in this topic is that the story also shows the natural consequence of Thanos' attitude. When after the completion of his plan, he learns that the remaining part of the universe is not grateful to him, but tries to undo it. The Titan concludes that killing half the population in order to create a better world was not enough. and that even greater good will be achieved if he kills everyone. And then, from scratch, he will create a new life in a new, better universe. Showing that, contrary to noble assurances, he is in fact devoting his life not to saving other people, but to the implementation of his own vision of a brave new world. We can also see Thanos' narcissism emerging from behind his slogans. When he himself is in danger, he unhesitatingly sacrifices his own soldiers for the greater good of his own life. Such attitudes should not, however, be surprising in a figure who grants himself a monopoly on deciding what a better world should look like, and on weighing whose life is worth, and whose life is not worth sacrificing for its creation. Ultimately, in this way the story also shows us where lies the line between the hero and the villain. The heroes do not recognize that human life is the highest or ultimate value. After all, they are putting their own lives at risk for higher purposes all the time. The difference is that while Thanos gives himself the right to decide that other people's lives are less important than his vision of a higher value, the Avengers, while recognizing the existence of values more important than human life, they do not decide for others. And they recognize that only the man himself can determine whether he wants to sacrifice himself for those values. And by their example they show that it is worth it. While a villain sacrifices other people's lives for the greater good, a hero is someone who sacrifices himself for a higher purpose.
We appreciate you guys spending time with us here, so please go ahead and watch our other videos. Oh, and ring that notification bell so you're the first one to get the new ones.